Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS Monday Night Football. We got Cleveland on the road in Denver. As far as today, things aren't as bad as I made it seem on Twitter. I tweeted that out. I had a rough a rough early window of games. I did grab a few dollars back in the 4 p.m. games. I went 2-1 in those games. It was not a good Sunday, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I made it seem on Twitter. People were messaging me like, "Oh, did you get crushed today?" It really wasn't that bad. I went 4-6 or something. It's the reason I lost a decent amount is my 3 top bets lost. So that's why it was way worse than my actual picks were. My 3 biggest bets lost. So I definitely lost some money today, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I made it look on Twitter. I was in a bad place and I was exaggerating. So yeah, not a great Sunday. Let's move on to Monday Night Football. Cleveland on the road in Denver. Let's do it.
Oh, I forgot to add, this morning was the most watched live stream in the channel's history. So just want to thank you guys for that. It was a lot of fun. Wasn't the best day betting wise, but the stream was fun, and to have that many people in there and so few disruptive comments, obviously there's going to be a few, but everyone's just we just got a cool group, man. And I love those streams. I have so much fun. So thanks everyone for watching this morning.
Welcome to the SWAS. The SWAS. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, Browns are in Denver for this one. Broncos laying, it looks like pretty much 6 across the board. I do see a couple 5.5s out there if you look. Total sitting at, it looks like the 41.5s are gone. I'm pretty much only seeing 42. I even see a couple 42.5s now. So totals at 42 or 42.5, depending on your sports book. Take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in pretty heavily on the Denver side. About 70% of the tickets, over 80% of the money. As I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Browns offense against the Broncos defense. Obviously, this is what we refer to in the industry as a mismatch. Cleveland's dead last in yards per play, dead last in success rate. Denver's first in yards per play allowed, third in success rate. Now, we know this Browns offense has been significantly better since making the quarterback change over to Jameis Winston. Also, since they got some pieces back on the offensive line, since they got Nick Chubb back. Obviously, 32nd in yards per play, 32nd in success rate. Maybe not the most accurate representation of what this Browns offense is right now, but no question, Denver's defense has the huge advantage here. You look specifically at this matchup right here, the Cleveland offensive line against the Denver defensive front. This is where the gap is exaggerated. I mean, you look at these graphics right here, you're like, this is not even close. It's a top 5 defensive front against a bottom 5 offensive line. We know that's not 100% accurate. First of all, Pochich is healthy, the center. Wyatt Teller is healthy, the guard. Jack Conklin is healthy, the right tackle. 3 pieces that have not been healthy for a big chunk of this season, so all 3 of them are back. Now, they are still missing Jedrick Wills. They're also missing DeJuan Jones, who would be their 3rd tackle. So they are going to have their 3rd string left tackle in, so by no means is everything sweet now, but having those 3 pieces back on the right side is huge. Also, like I said before, we have to take note that a huge chunk of the season was played with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Why is that significant? Well, Deshaun Watson holds on to the football forever. 2.76 is his average time to throw. That's 39th amongst quarterbacks in the NFL this year. Jameis Winston doesn't hold on to the ball like that. 2.45 seconds. That's 11th fastest in the NFL. In fact, since Jameis Winston has taken over at quarterback in Week 8, he's been pressured on just 28.7% of his dropbacks. That's 32nd most in the NFL. So since Jameis Winston has taken over at quarterback for Cleveland in Week 8, he's actually been one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the NFL. So when we're looking at these numbers here, the Browns pass protection numbers, you got to keep in mind that Deshaun Watson was making these numbers look terrible, holding on to the ball forever, and Cleveland was playing a big chunk of the season without half of their offensive line. The point I'm making is that the Browns pass protection is not this bad. You look at these graphics, you're like, oh my God, Jameis Winston's going to get killed. That's not the case at all. Browns might be more equipped to handle this pass rush than you think. Now, while we're on the topic of the Broncos pass rush, though, I do have to say there is something that concerns me here. Since Jameis Winston has taken over, he hasn't really been tested in terms of a pass rush, and I know the Steelers are on this list. Game was in the snow. It's kind of a weird data point. Before that, Baltimore, not the best pass rush. Chargers, not the most explosive pass rush. They've been injured as hell too. And the Saints don't have a pass rush at all. So this Denver pass rush is definitely going to be a test here for Jameis Winston and this Browns offensive line for sure. And that's a huge factor in this game because when it comes to Jameis Winston handling pressure, now the yards per attempt looks good. Pass rating looks all right. He's still able to make some throws when he's pressured. but there's two numbers that are just jumping off this graphic. Number one, 20.5% pressure to sack rate, 36th in the NFL, 8.5% turnover worthy play rate, 40th in the NFL. What happens when Jameis Winston experiences pressure? He takes a lot of sacks, he takes sacks at a high rate, and he puts the ball in harm's way a lot. That is not what you want to see when you're going on the road to Denver, because look at the right side of this graphic. 2nd in blitz rate, 7th in pressure rate, 2nd in adjusted sack rate. Now, in terms of Jameis Winston against the blitz, really nothing here. I mean, 37th in completion percentage, 32nd in yards per attempt, 19th in passer rating when blitzed, 39th, 15th, and 30th when not blitzed. So really nothing there on the splits in terms of Jameis Winston against the blitz. But I am definitely worried about the Broncos pass rush. We saw the numbers. Jameis Winston either makes a big play, puts the ball in harm's way, turns it over, or takes a sack. And those are such extremities in terms of making a prediction. I mean, those are a huge play, a sack, or a turnover. I mean, we're talking night and day difference here. Puts us in a really tough spot in terms of making a prediction. Now, let's take a look at the coverage matchup here for Jameis Winston. Denver runs a lot of man coverage, a lot of cover one, 5th in man coverage frequency, 7th in cover one frequency. Jameis Winston has excellent numbers against those coverages. Against man coverage, 6th in completion percentage, 10th in yards per attempt, 10th in passer rating. Look at his numbers against cover one. 2nd in the NFL in completion percentage, 5th in yards per attempt, 4th in passer rating. So if you're betting the Browns, you love that. He's got excellent numbers against cover one, excellent numbers against man coverage. Happens to be what Denver runs a lot of. And it's not like this Denver pass defense has been impenetrable. I mean, here are the numbers from the last 3 games. 6.4 yards per attempt, 79.8 average opponent passer rating. Those look pretty good, but 45.5% success rate per dropback, just over 260 passing yards allowed per game. So you can throw the ball on Denver. The idea of Jameis Winston going into Denver and making some throws, it's not completely crazy. Then you add on the fact that Denver is going to be missing a corner in this game. Riley Moss has been ruled out, so they're shorthanded in the secondary. I mean, again, it's not crazy to think Jameis Winston might be able to throw the ball in this game. Problem is, I don't know about the run support. In their last 3 games, Cleveland just can't do shit on the ground. 3.2 yards per carry, 76.7 rushing yards per game, 34.1% success rate per rush. This has been an ugly rushing attack here in Cleveland. Nick Chubb is back, but they just cannot get him going. And they're matched up against the Denver defense that's it's been elite against the run. In their last 3 games, they're allowing under 59 rushing yards per game, 3.14 yards per carry, success rate per rush under 28%. So I really don't think Jameis is going to have any run support, which means there's a lot of pressure on him making throws in this one. Yeah, against the cover one, against the man coverage, maybe he'll have some opportunities to make plays, but you throw in the Denver pass rush, you throw in the turnover-worthy play rate, the pressure to sack rate. I'm also seeing a lot of negative plays here from Jameis Winston. So as a whole, maybe Jameis Winston is able to connect on some big throws, but don't really love the matchup here for Cleveland offensively. Now let's take a look at the matchup on the other side. We got the Denver offense against the Cleveland defense. I mean, on paper, these two units are pretty evenly matched. Denver offensively is 21st in yards per play, 19th in success rate. Cleveland defensively is 24th in yards per play, 8th in success rate. So like I said, I mean, both maybe average, slightly below average units here. So where we should probably start on this side of the ball is the Browns pass rush. As I'm sure you probably know, this has been the strength of Cleveland's defense for multiple years now. 6th in blitz rate, 1st in pressure rate, 6th in adjusted sack rate. And when you look at the left side of this graphic, tell me Bo Nix is not the exact opposite of Jameis Winston. When pressured, he doesn't make big throws, 37th in yards per attempt, passer rating also in the toilet, 36th in passer rating. But what does Bo Nix not do? When pressured, he doesn't take sacks, he doesn't turn the ball over. Top 10 in both, 10th in pressure to sack rate, 7th in turnover-worthy play rate. Literally the exact opposite of Jameis Winston, who will make big plays under pressure, but he takes a ton of sacks and he puts the ball in harm's way. Bo Nix is truly the exact opposite. Now, we know Bo Nix is going to be under some pressure in this game. I mean, we're talking about Cleveland, but we do have to point out that this Denver offensive line is completely healthy, and they've been excellent in pass protection this year. 16th in pressure rate allowed, 2nd in PFF pass blocking grade, 4th in adjusted sack rate. So, look, I'm not saying Cleveland's pass rush is going to be neutralized here. I'm just saying Denver's offensive line is able to combat it a bit. And if we're being honest here, what do we really think about this Cleveland defense against the pass? Because if you isolate the last 6 games, I mean, in the first 5 games, they were allowing 200 passing yards per game, 6.8 yards per attempt, and an average opponent pass rating of 83.5. But in their last 6 games, these numbers are disgusting. 9.1 yards per pass attempt allowed, 47.3% success rate per dropback, an average opponent pass rating of 115.5. yeah, this Cleveland pass rush is great. We love the pass rush, but these are terrible numbers against the pass here. Now, we can give the Browns a little bit of a pass. We're looking at the numbers from the last 6 games. They have seen some quarterbacks. I mean, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson. So they've definitely seen some tough quarterbacks. But I mean, 9.1 yards per attempt over a 6-game sample size, an average opponent pass rating of 115. That's straight up bad. So yeah, they got a pass rush, but if the pass rush doesn't get home, the secondary is getting cooked, and it's not like Bo Nix has been terrible. This game's at home in Denver, and actually he's been really, really good at home in Denver so far this year. In their 7 road games, the numbers are pretty bad. 5.5 yards per pass attempt, an average passer rating of 80.9. But in their 5 games at home in Mile High, 7.8 yards per pass attempt, an average passer rating of 106.4. 258 passing yards per game, 54.4% success rate per dropback. Bo Nix has been night and day different at home in Denver. Now, as far as the coverage matchup goes for Bo Nix, just like the Broncos, Cleveland runs a lot of man coverage, a lot of cover 1, 7th and 4th. Man coverage and cover 1 frequency. Bo Nix, not nearly as good as Jameis Winston against man. In fact, these are a little bit concerning. Against man coverage this year, 29th in completion percentage, 24th in yards per attempt, 27th in passer rating. Now, the good news is he's slightly better against cover 1. 15th, 15th, and 18th. But I'm definitely not loving the fact that Cleveland runs a lot of man coverage and Bo Nix doesn't have the greatest looking numbers against man coverage. Definitely don't love that. Now, Thornhill's out for the Browns at safety. They're going to be missing Thornhill. Owosu's been out. The linebacker, he's been out for several games now. So they are missing a piece out of the secondary, so I guess that's something. As a whole, the matchup for Bo Nix, I don't love it, but I do think the offensive line is able to at least slow down the Cleveland pass rush, and Bo Nix, like we said before, been much better at home. So against a Browns secondary that's just been getting continuously cooked, granted against some good quarterbacks, I think Bo Nix will be able to complete some passes in this game. I think he'll be all right. Now we get to the most confusing part of the handicap, trying to figure out if Denver's going to be able to run the ball in this game. Because on one hand, we look at the Broncos' run game in the last 5, and it's disgusting. In the last 5 games, they've fallen off a cliff. They can't run the ball at all. 3.6 yards per carry, 30.6% success rate per rush, 94.6 rushing yards per game. But on the other hand, Cleveland's defense has not been very good against the run. They played well against the Steelers in the snow. 3.5 yards per carry, 29.4% success rate per rush. They definitely played the run well in that game, but look at the 3 games before that. 6.4 yards per carry. Now, one of those games was against Baltimore, another one against the Saints. Now that their offensive line's getting healthy again, they've definitely got a rushing attack. But the Chargers are in there. But then again, if you look at it, the Chargers didn't really run on Cleveland. So I'm really not sure what I think of this Browns defense against the run, and I don't really trust the Broncos rushing attack. Here's the thing when it comes to the Browns, and maybe just hear me out. I don't know if there's any logic to this. I'm sharing a personal opinion. The way I personally feel about this Browns defense is I trust them in those big division games. I trust them to show up against Mike Tomlin. I trust them to show up and give Lamar Jackson all kinds of fits. That's when I trust the Browns defense. They seem to get up for those games. In their non-division games, in the other games, sometimes this doesn't look like a very good defense at all. I just isolated the last 3 of both. Last 3 division games, they're allowing 21.3 points per game. 6.3 yards per play actually isn't good. 44.4% success rate. In their last 3 non-division games, over 27 points per game allowed, 7.8 yards per play. Look at the DVOA too. I mean, they seem to play much better in those big division games. Again, I'm sharing a personal opinion here. There's no real handicapping logic that backs that up. I'm just sharing my personal feeling about the Browns defense. I don't think they're a particularly great defense. I think they can be great when they get up for games, like the Steelers, like the Ravens. On the road in Denver, I don't know if I'd necessarily consider this one of those spots. I mean, obviously the Broncos is not a division game. I could see Cleveland's defense looking bad. It's also away from Cleveland. That trend kind of died a little bit, but dating back to last year, Cleveland's defense at home, definitely have a little more faith in the Browns defense at home than I do on the road. So on the road in Denver, I actually think Bo Nix is going to have a good game. I think the Broncos are going to be able to run the ball too. I don't really trust this Cleveland defense, if I'm being honest. There are certain spots where I can get behind it, but here on the road in Denver, Bo Nix protects the football. He doesn't take sacks, and that's what Cleveland does. They just disrupt everything, right? And Bo Nix is just very safe with the football. I don't love it. And personally, even if the Cleveland pass rush is winning their battles against the Denver offensive line, and that's a big if, because as we covered before, Denver's offensive line is good. Even if they are winning those battles, I mean, who's to say Jameis Winston doesn't just give this game away? I mean, we saw the turnover-worthy play rate under pressure. We saw the pressure to sack rate. So there's no way I can back Cleveland here. The way I bet this, I actually have 3 bets in this game, but just a half unit each. What I did, I spread my money out in this game. I have Denver minus 5.5. I have the over at 42. I got it. I missed the 41.5. So I got the over at 42, and I got Denver team total over 23.5. So I bet this game 3 ways, split my money into 3s here, into 0.5 units actually. So I got 3 bets on this game, maybe doing a little bit of gambling here. It's Monday Night Football, but I do trust Denver a bit more in this spot. So I'm on the Broncos minus 5.5, Denver team total over and the full game total. I'm hoping to get 7 points gifted to me. In fact, I might even bet Denver defense anytime touchdown. I'll put up the odds on the screen. I might bet that too. Again, probably just doing some gambling here. It's Monday Night Football, but those are my bets. We'll talk about it on the live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll also go through the NBA slate. There might be some college basketball. I think Toe said it's a lighter slate, but maybe we'll go through it. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. See you then if you're able to make it. Again, thanks to everyone for the live stream this morning. I mean, the most watched live stream in the history of the channel. It was awesome. Almost 5,000 people in there. Super cool. Can't thank you guys enough for the support. Let's have a great Monday night. Bounce back a little bit from the losses today. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.